Ed has been very successful in business, but he hasn't just stopped with that. He's been very supportive of the cause politically. He sponsored the Unite IE conferences. We'll have another one, assuming there's no new quote-unquote killer disease come out or something like that, next April. And he's a sponsor of the radio show. Don't hold that against him, you know. But I appreciate him sponsoring the show. His book is Experience Matters, Here's Mine, with lots of good practical advice. And Dennis Prager, very well read, he's written many books himself, said of Ed's book, Experience Matters is a treasure trove of practical advice. Ed Hoffman has lived a fascinating life. He has turned each one of his many varied and engaging adventures into a gem of wisdom. Read this book and profit. Then get your son or daughter to read it. Bribe them if you have to. That's how good and how much fun this book is. And from coming to someone who, like Dennis Prager, that is very, very high praise. And I didn't have a chance to read it yet. I got it. I bought a copy. Didn't have a chance to read it. But very first page starts out with, guys, just the kind of very practical advice that will help us get through life. So, men, rule number 1, your wife is always right. Rule number 2, if you ever think she's wrong, slap yourself in the face and read rule number 1 again. So that's the kind of good advice you're going to get in Ed's book. And with that, Ed Hoffman.
Good evening. Hi. Brought my notes here. They told me some things to say. Let me see. This is just so I don't go. This is so I don't go over, because Greg told me I had 2.5 hours. And I don't want to go over. Not really. So first of all, with that introduction, let me introduce, for those, how many people listen to my radio show? Okay, so if you follow me on Facebook or you heard my radio show, you know we had a bit of a scare last week with my wife Dawn, and I'm so thankful to God and the doctors at Loma Linda, and my lovely wife Dawn is here tonight. Stand up, baby. We almost lost her. And for those of you that have your wives that you see something's wrong and they go, no, don't worry about it. Honey, let me take you to the emergency room. No, I'm fine. At least I insisted on going to the cardiology appointment. And luckily the cardiologist saw what I saw and put her in the hospital, and the next day she had her procedure, and a few minutes after she woke up, she was breathing. So thankful to that. So let me welcome you to my Ed Talk, which is just like a TED Talk with a little bit more patriotism, a lot less bullshit. So hopefully it'll be a little more entertaining. Some key things that I wanted to bring up at the beginning. You know, that what we're seeing happen in Virginia and New Jersey is the start of a movement. And I've been saying it for a while. We're in the middle of a civil war, and we haven't broke out our guns yet. How many people in this room are gun owners? I think when the government figures out, no, hold on, they already know. When we figure out there's more of us and less of them, and we got a hell of a lot more guns, that's when things are going to change. I like the movement we see. I love the what we saw in New Jersey. And you know what? If we're going to elect someone like Winsome Sears, and I know she's a proud black lady, but you know what? What I like about her is she's qualified. She's smart. She's American. And I don't care if she's white, brown, white, purple, or green. Those are the people. Hey, you want to have our first black president? Let's have a black president that's qualified. You want to have our first black vice president? Let's not have her only qualifications is the color of her skin. Let's have her. We've got a lot of qualified people, and I don't care what color they are. Let's put qualified people there that are American, that understand this is America. I personally think Winsome Sears is a rock star, and I saw her on TV the other day. And I go, hey, we need some clips for her from the show this week because this lady's a rock star. Not because she's black, because she's qualified. She's a Marine. She's a fighter. You know, if Americans understood how blessed they are to be in America the way that foreigners do that come here, the immigrants, we'd be in a different place. You know, where we build on the lessons that we've learned, and this is kind of the theme of my book. We build our country on the lessons that we've learned in our past, and as long as we teach our kids our past, we'll keep building on it. When we start taking Abraham Lincoln off of schools, when we start taking all these statues down, we forget from where we came. How are we going to? I mean, I don't know how much longer I have on this earth, but I don't expect I'll be here 30 years from now. I don't expect, and when all of us are gone, who's going to carry on the American tradition if we don't teach our kids? So with that, remember, Thanksgiving's coming up this month. Thanksgiving is a great time to talk about religion and politics. Because if you don't, who's going to? If not this Thanksgiving, when? And if not at your house, where? If not you, who? So anyway, there's some fun stuff. I brought my phone up here for a couple of reasons. I got an email at Hoffman.net this morning, or yesterday. I read it early this morning. So if you heard the story, this COVID thing. So we went into Loma Linda on Tuesday, and we walked in, and they do the, have you had any COVID symptoms? Have you been in touch with anybody with COVID? Blah blah blah, the general stuff. And I said no. And they go, okay, you know where you're going? I say Heart Institute, and they go, okay, go ahead, walk right by. Then we end up being in the emergency room, and then the next morning I'm still in the emergency room, and then Don went into operating room, and they told me get lost for a couple hours. They'll call me and then come in through the old hospital. And when I go in there, they say, do you have a vaccine card? And I said no. So you had a negative test in the last 3 days? No. They go, well, you can't come in. I said, lady, I've been in here for 18 out of the last 24 hours. You're not stopping me. I'm coming in, my wife's in recovery. And she just kind of backed down, and she goes, okay, well, this, and she's starting to find out where she's at. And then I just go, you know what, she's in the new part of the building. They told me the old, I'll just drive over there and go in that side. And she goes, well, the parking is limited. I said, the parking is limited everywhere. I'll go over there. So I told that story on the radio. And then later that day, our kids want to see their mom. And they had to jump through all kinds of hoops. And they found one of those quickie tests at CVS, and they got the quickie test and came in. Okay, we got in. I apologized to my kids. Say, hey, I'm sorry you have to jump through all those hoops. I'm sorry you have to jump through all those hoops to see your mom for 15 minutes. And they go, hey, it had to be done. I just said, you know what? I taught my kids, life is tough. Life is tough for everybody. Doesn't matter where you live, whether you had good parents or bad parents, whether your color, what color your skin is, from what country you came from. Life is tough. Has anybody here not had a tough life? I said we taught our kids, I'd say we because I taught my kids hard work and Dawn taught our kids to be good people. She taught me to be a good person. But we taught them when the hard times come, recognize this is part of your price. And don't ask God to lighten your burden. Ask God to strengthen your back and get you through it. The kids recognized that this was part of their price. And I said, recognize why this is happening, because government wants to take control of us. They want to find out how much we'll take before we say enough. How much they can control us. Hey, just wear a mask. Just have this vaccine. Stick your arm out and we'll stick a needle in your arm and we're going to stick something in your arm. You don't know what it is. Apparently it's not a vaccine because everyone's getting the COVID anyway. I haven't had the vaccine. I haven't. And I take my vitamin D3s and my zinc and I try to live a good life and I try to be a good Christian. And I never wear a mask unless they absolutely make me. I walked into some places and they go, oh, you have to wear a mask. So, wait, didn't you hear the news? They announced it today. What? COVID's bullshit. It's just the flu. I haven't really got away with that too many times, but some people laugh. So I get this email. It says, Dear Ed, I'm a loyal listener, but you are so far off on the vaccines. So glad your wife got help. You are right. The doctors saved her life. But you are a bastard. Your arrogant attitude about COVID and the vaccine led you to sneak into the hospital without mandated safeguards. You would put the doctors, nurses, and patients and staff and visitors at risk for COVID just because you don't want to do what's right. I respectfully replied, bullshit. I said, hey, you know what, the difference between the way you think and the way I think is I don't listen to what people tell me. I look at what people tell me, and I look at what some other people tell me, and I look at what I read on the internet, and then I look at real life. And I say, what makes sense to me? Hence, the main event exists, so I could, everybody's entitled to their own opinion, and I think everyone's entitled to mine. But I say, hey, if the vaccines are there to protect me, if I don't get a vaccine, I'm only putting me in danger. And if everybody else has had a vaccine, they shouldn't be worried about whether I have a vaccine or not because they're protected from people like me. And it seems to me I heard fuck Joe Biden say that, hey, if you've had the vaccine, you're much more protected. Then it's much more protected. You don't have to wear a mask. And I think I heard the Lord God of vaccines, Tony Fauci, say the same thing. Oh, yeah, the vaccines are much better protected. So why are we still having this argument? So anyway, I thought I'd share that with you, my excitement for the week. But for those of you who don't know me, let me just quickly introduce myself. My name's Ed Hoffman, in case you didn't know who I was. I've been in the mortgage business for 32 years. I recently changed companies because just like they were talking about using your wallet to vote, I saw the company I was working for make some business decisions that I didn't think were the right thing. And I said, I've been doing this business for this many years, and I do what's right by people. Sometimes the right thing is not the most profitable thing. Sometimes you lose money. But the right thing is always the right thing, and God's watching. And I said, I'm going to leave my legacy at some point to someone that's going to profit from all that I've built. It's not going to be people that don't think like that. I'm hosting the main event on 590. I've been the sponsor of the United IE show since the very beginning when Don Dix and Greg Britton and John Barry and John Hancock walked into my office and said, hey, we have an idea for a show. Will you support it? And I said, I can't do it all myself. Absolutely, I'll support it. And I've been supporting it since the beginning. And I've got a new book called Experience Matters, Here's Mine. And so that's what I'm here today for, because I'm trying to make some money on this book. Just so everybody knows, if I sell like 1,000 books, I'm still in the hole. I didn't write it to make money. I wrote it because my wife told me to. I wrote it because there's a message there, and Don's been telling me, hey, write a book. You should write a book. I go, what am I going to write a book about? About all the stuff that you've learned and all the lessons you've learned, all the things you've done, things that you teach people. And I go, who wants to read that? Everybody. Okay. And then after 15 years of her telling me that, I finally said, okay, 2020, something tells me 2020 is going to be the year I write it. And since we were locked down in COVID, I didn't know that till 3 months later, like the rest of you. So I didn't start until 3 months later, and it took about a year and 2 months, and to do it with the help of Brooke Flagg here, who is my fingers on the keyboard. I tell the stories, and then she types them up. I go, it looks so official when I see it in writing. I just was just BSing into the microphone. But this is not the story of my life. I talked to Larry Elder. When I was writing my book. He goes, what's your book about? Well, my life and all the stuff I've learned. He goes, don't write a book about your life. And I've talked to Larry Elder about financial things, personally. And he says, tell a story about it. He goes, write your book about how you teach people not to screw themselves up and get to retirement with no money. Tell your story about, write your book about all this stuff and tell your story in that same framework. He goes, because you're not well enough known that people are just going to buy your book to know your story. I said, okay, so that's what I did, and I wrote the book, and I told the story that way. But the people that are reading it are calling me up and they're saying, Ed, this story is like my story, and I could have written this book. We had so many things that we did. We worked at the same places. We did the same kind of stuff before we got to college, and we made these same kind of decisions. This book is not about my life. This is about all of our lives. All of our lives, we all went through all these things. We all learned all these stories. We all learned all these lessons. We all did this. I just recognized all the lessons along the way, and I point them out. And I call it Experience Matters because experience is the best teacher, especially when it's somebody else's experience. Otherwise, you just waste time. And say, hey, if I can teach people to learn by my experience, if I can teach people, and the whole theme of my book it's all wrapped around movie clips, like my show is. So I always start my show with a movie clip, because in my eyes, the movies are how you learn from other people's experience in a more entertaining way than listening to Grandpa tell his stories for the 25th time. So, and I know I'm a grandpa now too, so I'm sure my grandkids, when they're not around me, they're saying, Grandpa's talking about Trump still. He's talking about all this stuff. So we've all experienced that. So I had a chance to meet Rudy Rudiger. How many people have seen the movie Rudy? Okay, so Rudy Rudiger, this kid that was his dream to play college football for Notre Dame, and mostly to impress his dad. But they say he's 5 foot. So I'm 5'8". Wikipedia says he's 5'6". I have to say bullshit, because I have a picture of me with him that I can't find. It's on one of my phones. But I'm like this, and my hand's on his shoulder, and he's like this. So he's got to be about 5'3". And he tells the story that he goes, "Hey, I only played 27 seconds. I'm really worried this is going to fall, and I'm going to make a mess." This is such a scary. But he talks. But I think it needs nails. But he says, I only played 27 seconds. Had I not written the story and got someone to want to make a movie and they got the Hobbit to play me, no one would even know who I am. And so I listened to him talk. He's speaking at a sales conference that I went to. And the next morning, he's speaking at the VIP dinner or a breakfast. There wasn't the whole crowd there, but a certain amount of us were invited. I showed up early, which is very un-ed. So I picked, I don't usually get any place early. Because there's always one more thing I could finish before I leave. And none of you guys are like that. But God, I think God makes things happen, and I needed to learn a lesson that morning, and I had about 10 minutes with Rudy by myself, and we're talking, and after we get done, I say, what I gathered from this is you're an ordinary guy who had an extraordinary experience, and they captured it. And that movie is one frame of his life, which encapsulates maybe 10 years over the whole story. And 27 seconds at the glory part at the end, when he sacks the quarterback for Georgia Tech. There's a heroic story in all of our lives. If you catch it, if you notice, if you pay attention to all the triumphs that we've all been through, and if we can recognize that we're all heroes. There's a tremendous sports movie, tremendous overcoming movie. There's a tremendous war movie in all of our lives, and that's kind of what I'm pointing out in the book. And I try to bring out the movie lines, the lessons that we learn in movies. You watch things once and you get the entertainment out of them, and you realize there's hours and hours and hours and hours of film on the editor's floor for the hour and a half or 2 hours that you're sitting in the theater watching it, and that's because there's an editor there that's making sure every little intricate detail is in there, and they have the pauses just right. I think about A Few Good Men, the look on Tom Cruise's face when he's in the courtroom and he's scared shitless whether he should ask the question to Jack Nicholson, and you could feel it. Those are the lessons. If you watch the movie The Big Short, you can watch the movie The Big Short. If you don't know what really happened in 2008 to bring down the whole global economic system, you can watch The Big Short, and you can watch it about 150 times and learn something new every time. And I have a whole chapter on the meltdown and why it happened in every little detail, to tell you the truth about what happened with the mortgage crisis. And if you look at what happened, you're seeing things start to happen again, where we're moving towards the same sentiments we had that created subprime mortgages. You're watching the Democrats talk the same nonsense that created the subprime crisis, and I don't think the world economic system could absorb it again. There's a whole bunch of stories that there's a whole bunch of stories in here that you'll find interesting, and not just Dennis Prager, but a lot of people are saying, "Hey, I want to give this to my kids for Christmas." And again, I don't want to sound like I'm trying to sell the book, but I am, because I'm really proud of this. I'm really proud of this book. There's a big section on real estate investing. You don't have to have your dad give you $1 million loan like Donald Trump did to become successful in real estate. You don't have to turn $1 million into 10 billion. You can turn a few thousand into a couple of million over a few years, real easy. And I take you step by step by step, one property at a time. I was doing seminars and I had one guy say, "Hey, I see how I get the first one. And I see I go with my brother, I get the second one. How do I get the 10 properties?" I said, "Don't worry about it. Take baby steps. You buy a property, you rehab it, you watch, first of all, you watch the market cycles, which I have whole chapter where I explain the market cycles. And right now we're in a seller's market too. You know what a seller's market 2 is? It's right before buyer's market 1. Okay? And just so you guys know, Donna and I sold all of our rental properties about 3 months ago. All of our rental properties in California. And we have one more property in Mammoth that's in escrow now. We bought a property in Montana, not because we're leaving California, because we wanted it. And we could. And it's beautiful there. We are not selling our house. We're not selling our commercial complex. We're selling one of our commercial buildings. Why? Because it's the right market cycle. It's the right time. What comes after seller's market 2, buyer's market 1, and then buyer's market 2? If you've got people in your family that are interested in that kind of thing, baby steps, baby steps. You buy your first property, you refinance it, you stick somebody in it, you take a deep cleansing breath and go, now I have a house and a rental house. And I don't have to pay for it. Someone else is paying my mortgage payment. And then think about it, take a deep cleansing breath, enjoy it, and then start looking for the next one. What did I like about what I bought? What did I not like about it? I take you through every little step. Don and I bought a commercial property for $5 million in 2006. We put $1,642,000 down. We started buying properties, the properties that we used for that 3 years earlier, with a goal of buying an apartment building. And I knew I didn't have enough money to put down on a $5 million apartment building. So I said, I'm going to buy properties. I'm going to buy 1, then I'm going to buy 2, I'm going to buy 3. I'm like 1 step at a time. My goal was to have 20 properties, wait 5 years, 5 to 10 years till they had $100,000 equity in each, and then I had a $2 million down payment on a $6 million apartment building. 3 years later, we put $1,642,000 down. I go, how did we do that? We didn't have $1,642,000, but we bought 1 property, bought another property, bought another property. The second wave, and after the meltdown, I went back and looked. I looked and I read a few more books, and I said, would I still buy these properties? Some of them I wouldn't have bought when I had it to do over again, and I fine-tuned them. And I share all that stuff with you guys in a very easy to understand. Other experiences that I talk about in this book. Did anybody know I was a world champion arm wrestler? I was a 6-time amateur world champion. Amateur. Then I went pro sometime around 2000. I think I was 6 times between 91 and 98. Then I went pro, and I got a lot of seconds and thirds and a bunch of ass kickings. But it was fun. It was fun. And my last tournament was in 2002, a month after the 1-year anniversary of 9/11. And that was the single most emotional, patriotic experience of my life. We stayed at the Wall Street Holiday Inn, and Don and I flew in on Thursday, and we got to Holiday Inn, and the first thing we did was put our bags in our room. Let's go to Ground Zero. Moving. We went back to Ground Zero about 20 times in 3 days. I got another ass kicking in the arm wrestling tournament. I won a couple of matches. I got on TV on Fox Sports West. Who cares? It was the first time we'd ever been in New York City. I think God wanted me to be there. I think I talk about how that changed me politically, how it changed me patriotically. The reason that Don and I support veterans charities was probably mostly that trip and 9/11 and anchored in by that trip to Ground Zero. Has anybody been to Ground Zero? If you haven't been there, you know the Ground Zero Museum is a little bit of a sugar coating from what we saw in 2002, because all those little posters and tributes that kids put up for their parents and the missing pictures, that those were all still real on the gates of the fence across the street from Ground Zero, and the shirts and tributes from fire departments all over the country, all over the world. People that love America so much came from other countries to help dig people out and help rebuild, and it's a moving experience. So I talk about those experiences. I talk about how it moved us. I talk about the arm wrestling career that got me there, and hustling. It started out hustling free beer in bars before I was 21. Doing arm wrestling. I looked older than I was. I was 20, but I was built like I was 21. And arm wrestling on Pac-Man machines. Remember the Pac-Man machines in the bars? They've got little couches around them, so while you're waiting for your table at Black Angus, you could play Pac-Man and drop some quarters in there. So we'd have arm wrestling matches on those, and we'd hustle some free beers. And my experience of has anybody seen Over the Top? Sylvester Stallone. Okay, I was there. I've seen the movie about 1,200 times, hoping I could find me in it. Oh, I was standing right here. Oh, I was right here. I was right here. I swear I was there. I met Sly. He's a little guy. I say, hey, I got the same body as Sylvester Stallone, with the exception of double stuffed Oreo cookies. So I talk about a whole bunch of stories from there, and I talk about some lessons that I learned in arm wrestling that I related to other parts of my life. And if you look at all your life, if you look at all the little things in your life, there's lessons that you'll use everywhere. I'll tell one quick little story. There's a guy named Tom Richter that lived up in Victorville. I haven't seen him for years, and I just turned 60, so he's got to be late 60s, maybe in his 70s. But I was in my 20s at the time, and we're arm wrestling, and he's psyching up. When they call him and me up, and he's goes up to the table, and we've arm wrestled before. And I walk up to him and I go, "Oh, this is arm wrestling. It's for a trophy. Relax. You can give yourself an aneurysm." And I go, "Tom, relax, man. It's not worth it. It's not worth it to kill yourself over this." And then we're setting up, and he's, we're trying to get our grips. And I grab him, and they go, "Ready?" And then I just held back and go. And he goes, whoosh, and I just held him like this. And then I just went, shoo, brought him over to the bed, and go back over to our table where Don's waiting. He comes over, he calms down, lets his blood pressure come down. He goes, "Hey, Ed, good match. What did I do wrong?" And I go, "You didn't do anything wrong. You just didn't do anything." I said, all you did was squeeze my hand. I said, "Remember, the object of the game is to move my hand over to the pad. You didn't do anything to move me sideways, and that's the object of the game. You just squeezed my hand really tight, and I just held you, and then I just said, 'Ready?' I just moved you to the side." I relate that to a charity event I went to a few years later, where we're raising money, and the Realtor Association in Moreno Valley put on this big charity golf tournament, and we were out there. I had probably 12 of my people not work all day. We probably spent a couple $1,000 on door prizes and sponsoring. And at the end of it, they go, "Okay, hey, the end of the day, 6 or 7 hours, raffles, auctions, all this stuff." Goes, "Hey, we raised $2,000 to give to the community food bank." And I'm going, $2,000, really? I said I would have rather written a check for $2,000. I had all my people working. And it's like, are you guys paying attention to what you're doing? If you're doing a charity golf tournament, his idea is to raise money for charity. When you guys go out there to get signatures for this school choice amendment, the school choice bill, the idea is to get signatures. It's not really to hang out and socialize with all your people and just chit chat. Hey, how are you doing? Get signatures. When people do anything, pay attention to what you're trying to do. I try to relate that. I say, hey, I'm going to do a charity golf tournament. I'm going to do a charity event, and we're gonna raise some money. And we did some big charity events. Those charity events inspired some people. We end up raising a bunch of money in a bunch of events. We got involved with the Independence Fund. We got involved with giving away track chairs. We got involved with the boot campaign when Joey Jones, everybody knows who Joey Jones is on Fox? Double amputee, Marine explosive ordnance disposal guy. So I met him and we got involved with the boot campaign. Then the boot campaign, the Independence Fund led us to the Gary Sinise Foundation. And the Gary Sinise Foundation, we raised money to build a smart home in San Diego for Andrew Botrell, a triple amputee down there. And we made some differences. We made some differences. And what came from, where did I get that? I just focused in on that arm wrestling match. And I just go. And I didn't think about Tom's not focusing on what he's trying to do. He just asked me the question. And I go, well, what did he do wrong? I can't think of anything he did wrong. He just forgot he was supposed to drag my hand to the pad. So I tell stories like that. I tell some other stories. I actually did a mortgage loan for one of LA's top 10 most wanted. A guy who wrote a book called Monster, Cody Scott. He's a ex-Crip. The Crips or the Bloods? I don't know. One of them. One of the gangs in LA. And he wrote a book called Monster. And I financed his house while he's in jail. I had to go up to Pelican Bay Prison and because the underwriter was mad that we went over ahead and went to HUD, and HUD said, hey, he's a literary author. It's no different than being self-employed, and we couldn't discriminate against the fact that he's in jail. And we did his loan. And we financed his house, and his wife and kids moved in Moreno Valley. And so I tell that kind of stuff. I talk about other stuff. Anyway, I have a whole bunch of stuff in there. It's fun. I talk about charities. I talk about my politics. I talk about all this stuff, and I put it all into lessons that, you know what, this is what you want your teenage kids to read. This is what you want them to read because it's a fun. I write it like I talk on the radio, and everybody's seeing. And you know, I frame it all in with movie clips, everything from Rocky to Finding Nemo, and you know, some all kinds of movies that you've seen, and or some that you haven't seen that you should probably see. I have to give my employees and Brooke her homework. Hey, what do you mean you haven't? Is there anybody who hasn't seen all the Rocky movies and would admit it? Come on, man. So I got the books here. If you'd like to buy them. I'm not getting rich on them. I'm here to just spread it. I'm happy to sign them if you want to get them. I want to leave you with a final thought because it's I've been up here for only 2 hours and 15 minutes. Got 15 more minutes. This is a thought that I've been thinking about for the last couple of weeks, and I've said a couple of things on my radio show. We have the this is something that's pretty exciting to me. We have a 50-50 Senate. The Democrats only own the Senate because of Kamala Harris, whatever her name is, Camel Toe. If we could just get one senator that recognizes that the Democrat Party is destroying America, to just do something for their country and change parties, we own the Senate. Joe Manchin, Kirsten Sinema, any of those middle-of-the-road Democrats, is to say, hey, I don't want to be a part of this. And just for the good of the country to switch. There's only, it's 212 to 220 in the House of Representatives. If we could get 5 Democrat congresspeople out of 220 to say, hey, you know what? I think Nancy Pelosi is full of crap. She's senile. She's off her rocker. And for the good of the country, I'm going to change to stop this destroying of America. If we could get 5 of them, that doesn't seem that hard, does it? Does anybody think that seems impossible? I mean, they think they're going to get 10 Republican senators to vote to impeach the president. It would seem easy. It would seem easy. I'm going to do a little video and I'm going to send it out to everybody and get everybody to say forward this until everybody in Congress and everybody in the Senate has seen it and starts thinking about this. I can't believe that 220 Democrat congresspeople, out of those, that we can't see 5 of them that see what's going on here. Does anybody think that is realistic? You guys still awake? This is going to be my new campaign. Besides the school choice thing and Thanksgiving. And Thanksgiving. We have to open up their eyes. So watch for that. I'm going to put that out in the next couple of days. Anyway, thank you for your attention. And thank you for listening to my show. And if you'd like to buy a book, I'm happy to sign them. And you know what? Everything they're saying, get those signatures for that school choice. And talk. Talk to your kids. Talk to your grandkids. Talk to your neighbors. Talk to everybody. Because if we don't, their teachers, the only ones teaching them. They're not teaching them the stuff we want. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Before you run off, tell them your first great Edism from we did the radio show together, my show today. So you have this great Edism about what happens and what you should be praying for in tough times.
Oh yes, I said this once tonight. I said, don't ask God to lighten your burden. Ask Him to strengthen your back. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, and I think we all feel overwhelmed. Quite often these days, we watch our country going down the toilet, and you say, "Hey, you know what? Don't ask God to lighten your burden. Ask Him to strengthen your back, and stand up and say something."
Thank you, Ed.